Okay, everybody, I'm going to give you all a quick rundown of how I'm doing my beds, these raised beds. First of all, it cost me $0 to make the actual beds because I used leftover wood from what was over there, which was a deck, a lower deck. No, not the upper one, the lower one. There was a lower deck there instead of that concrete, so I reused that wood, the planks that you walked on, to make these raised beds. So I was looking up more efficient ways to make raised beds, and I wanted to find a way to water from below, and so I found out about these SIP raised beds. And so essentially what I've done here is I've run a bunch of corrugated piping that's perforated along the bottom of the bed. You can see some of it right there. And those tubes go along the whole bottom of the bed, all the way across under that dirt. And then the dirt, I ended up getting 1.5 yards of basically compost and topsoil blend from the rock place out in Elkhorn. And I watched this channel called Albo Peppers on YouTube, and he said don't use compost and topsoil in the whole bed because it gets too clay-like and it doesn't allow for good wicking with the dirt. It doesn't allow the water to come up from the bottom up to the top very well, and it can cause disease and all this stuff. So I thought I was going to just fill it up with this Pro Mix, but when I figured out how much this Pro Mix is going to cost me, I was like, no way, that's way too much. So then what I decided to do is basically do the best of both worlds. So now what I'm doing is essentially I've filled the whole bed up with topsoil compost, and then I'm digging these giant holes that are way bigger than what I need to plant my plants in, and filling those up with Pro Mix. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating giant pots made out of dirt, and rich dirt too. There's a lot of compost in there. So you know, this whole thing, to fill this whole bed, was only $56. And as you can see, this bed is deep. It's a 16.5-inch bed deep. So yeah, dirt pots. I'm making pots out of dirt and filling them up with good Pro Mix. So I end up spending a fraction of the amount on Pro Mix. And if you think about it, if I were to buy this many pots, it would cost me a lot more than $56. So yeah, basically these holes filled with this Pro Mix are going to act as cores to suck the water up from the bottom of the bed where water is going to go in through, and up towards the roots of the plants, and allow for good water, I guess, wicking and good aeration and stuff. And then the rest, you know, in between the plants is just going to be this topsoil compost, and then that way if the plant's roots want to grow bigger than what the hole is, they can. There's nothing stopping them. So yeah, this is my attempt at doing a cheaper version of Albo Pepper's raised beds, and actually much larger too. So I know he said don't use compost and topsoil. Well, I'm taking that to heart, and I'm filling up these giant holes with Pro Mix, and we're gonna see how this works out. And then I'm gonna do basically the same thing over there. So all the holes of dirt that I'm digging out now, I'm putting in these totes. I'm gonna throw them in that bed over there once I throw the pipes and the tarp in there, and then I'm gonna fill that up with topsoil and compost too, and then I'm gonna make holes just like this. Except I'll probably do the holes and the Pro Mix all at the same time, instead of filling it all up first, because putting all this dirt in here was a huge pain. So yeah, I don't want to do that again. I definitely don't want to borrow somebody's truck and fill it up with all this dirt and have to clean it out afterwards and all that. We're going to try to avoid that at all costs. So yeah, this is how it is. Once I get everything planted and the water run to them, I'll update you guys on what's going on.
So basically what you're seeing here is where the plants started off, and then I just went ahead and planted them straight in, and then this is just a quick little rundown of the growth that happened from the time I planted them in the bed up until about the 4th of July.
Alright, so This is the first SIP bed I did when I did the video on how the drainage system was being put in. This is that bed. So again, the first row, mostly scorpions at the beginning, then there's a couple of ghosts towards the end, and then there's a reaper, Carolina reaper, all the way at the end. Don't mind the holes in them and stuff. Some of the leaves got damaged, like that one. That's from hail, not bugs. Got hit with some hail. Notice how everything else looks good. Otherwise, if it was bugs or something, the problem would be more widespread than certain little spots. A lot of them had hail damage not too long ago, but the growth has been so crazy that a lot of the hail damage has already kind of disappeared when you look at the grand scheme. So these are all the super hots in the first row. Second row, poblano and pepperoncini. They're just kind of scattered throughout. I don't even know which one's what. I just want to make sure I get some of each. I know we got some, like there in the middle, that big one, that's a poblano. You got a couple other kind of bigger ones towards the back. Those are obviously also poblano. I mean, you can visually tell the difference between the pepperoncini and the poblano plants just by looking at the leaves, I think. The leaves on the pepperoncinis look a lot more like the leaves on the Chihuahua Negros all the way to the right. They're very similar, right? But when you get back to these poblanos, they got these longer, broader, almost droopier leaves. And so you can tell which ones are which. Looks like I got 4 poblanos and 4, actually almost looks like I got 4 each. I think I might have 5 pepperoncini. I think it's 4 actually. I think I got 4 each. But anyway, and then all these in the front here, kind of like I did the other ones on the left here on the right, are the Chihuahua Negros. It's only 4 of them. I got more than that though. I planted some of those in the greenhouse just to do a comparison, and that part's interesting too. So I already got a lot of peppers on the actual on the Chihuahua Negros, which have always done well since the beginning. They were easy to grow because they're not very hot. So I actually had a lot of success with the Chihuahua Negros that I got from Italy. We got some pepperoncini on this one here, as you can see. You know, not too big. I'll put my hand next to it. Yeah, there you go. Not quite as full as I'd like. I've seen pepperoncini grow weird like this. It's whatever. But I got a lot of these plants and they're already starting to produce. This one's got 4 on it already, 5 on it. And as you go down the line here, most of these Chihuahua Negros have some peppers on them. Some of them are smaller. Some plants are making bigger ones sooner. So they're not all like exactly at the same point in their production. But like this one back here, it's making some big ones, as you can see. Those are Chihuahua Negros. They're still green right now because obviously they're not ripe. But they should turn black and that will look sweet. No pods on the super hots, any of them yet. They're just slower altogether than the milder peppers. They're obviously slower. And up here in Nebraska, where we got to worry about winter and stuff, I wasn't able to start them, you know, outside in like February or March like some people down south. So I had to wait. I don't think I planted this bed until like mid-April. Maybe early April. I can't remember. I have to go back and look. But yeah, this bed has been incredible. So this bed is kind of the same thing. I ran out of the potting mix to put in the middle here for these ones that I got from Mohawks. So these are like more basic ones like jalapenos, habaneros, serranos. I got a couple anchos right there. I really wasn't too concerned with those. The anchos I got in potting mix, luckily. And they're starting to bounce back, but they're slower. And then all of the tomatoes are in potting mix as well. And then all of these, well, the first 2 or 3, well, no, the first 5 of these super hots here on the left, Well, no, I think all these are in potting mix. Actually, all the ones on the left, that's all potting mix. It was just the middle I ran out. So the middle I just did without potting mix. I guess just to compare. But honestly, guys, I'm not really seeing much of a difference. I'm seeing some pretty significant growth on ones that, like this Serrano right here. Look at the bottom is already starting to bush out a lot compared to the first ones. Like if you look towards the top, see how there's like not many leaves growing between the other leaves? That's how the whole plant looked when I planted it. And then now, it's only been 2 weeks. This is starting to happen at the bottom. And as you can see, it's crawling its way up the plant too. And little leaves are starting to sprout up top. So you can see how badly it wanted to grow. These were super root bound when I put them in. A lot of roots at the bottom of those containers. I waited too long to put them in. That's why I did them without potting mix, because it had been so long. I was like, I don't know if I want to wait any longer. Let me just throw them in and see what happens. There's a couple Caribbean reds on this one over here, but that's just because they were root bound so bad, these plants were, the ones in the middle. And so they were already starting to produce peppers, some of them. Even this one you can see has got one. So that's going to affect their growth. They're going to be short and stout, but they're going to put some out for sure. They definitely seem to be liking this growing environment. This SIP thing is cool. This thing on the left is a sunflower my daughter got from school. I told her I'll grow it in here, see what happens. It's really starting to take off at the top, but kicking in late. Anyway, I mean, that's it. That's a little update. Trying to keep it short. Hold up. Let me show you guys the greenhouse real quick, because it's interesting to see how some of these Chihuahua Negros look now compared to the ones that are in the greenhouse. As a matter of fact, let me put you at eye level. But we're gonna see them in the greenhouse. Look how full they are. They just got all these leaves and stuff. It's just bushy. Super bushy. Like all of it is super bushy. Even these things over here. The super hots are so short and bushy. I love it. They look fantastic. So we'll compare that look to what we got going on in the greenhouse. So here we are back in the greenhouse, closer to my house. And these I'm sorry, not that. These over here are the same Chihuahua Negros that were outside. They started indoor. When they planted them out here, they were the same size as the rest. And look how much taller and skinnier this got as opposed to the short and bushy out in the SIP bed. That's what I'm noticing. Now, I'll explain why that it is in a second. But let's also look at some of the other ones that I overwintered from last year. So last year I dug up some of these. I dug up this one here on the right, Sriracha. I got this one on the left, which is a ghost. And I got this one over here by the fan, well, where the fan is now. And I believe that's a Poblano. And just all the way across the board, all of these pepper plants, it's not, you know, some camera trickery or anything. Like, they're just way taller and lankier than the plants outside. And I think the reason for that was that this fan I just put in a couple days ago. And it's going directly outside. That's like my fence, my house right there behind it. Right, so this is the back of my house, and then there's the fence that goes like towards the front of my house right there. And I just cut out a hole, and I built this little like thing to hold the fan in place essentially. And I just stuck the fan there for now. And then I cut a hole up on the other side of the ceiling area to exhaust a bit. Just to get better air circulation in here. Because I think what was happening that was causing this was, I think it was the fact that it was getting very humid and hot in here. Very humid and hot. Because I had this window closed to prevent rain from coming in. Now I got it open. And I just leave it open unless it's going to rain. And even now when I'm sitting in it, I'm sweating. It's just like the humidity gets insane in here. And it just gets really hot. And so I'm like, dude, I need better ventilation in here, obviously. So I put that fan there. I opened this exhaust on the other side. And I did that about 4 days ago. At the same time, I also fed them some limestone at the root system. And then, you know, kind of spray that into the soil. And so that's going to help these bounce back as well. It's not just the new ventilation system, but you can already start to see, especially on these guys, way more leaf production at the top that looks less wilted, right? So if you look at some of these other ones over here, like the habanero in the back, or no, I'm sorry, Scotch bonnet. This Scotch bonnet in the back is weak. Can't take this situation that well, and it's the leaves it's putting out are like hella small and wrinkly and wilted. And so obviously that's not good, and that's kind of happening on the other ones, but the problem is starting to correct itself now, I think. So obviously I'll shoot another video here in about you know, whatever, a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks, who knows, we'll see. And I'll kind of show you guys how much of a difference adding that ventilation was to the plant. Also, for the record, last year the ones that grew in here were also tall and lanky and produced very little peppers, especially that ghost right there. I kept it just because it was the only ghost I had at the time, but that one put out like maybe 5 or 6 little peppers all the way at the very end of the year. Did horribly, like didn't get any other peppers throughout the year from this, even though I planted it early. So yeah, the ones out in the SIP bed are dramatically outpacing the ones in this greenhouse, and so I got to do something about that. We'll see. Probably add some better root drainage too. I mean, I think that's been the biggest. I think that's the biggest like thing that the SIP beds got going is the root drainage. You know, like the drainage down towards the bottom, the roots, is far superior to what's in here. And I mean, you could just see how big of a difference that's making in the way the plant looks, and also how it will behave. But some of these, there are peppers on some of them. This jalapeno got some short, little plump ones. They look like, I don't even know, little pills or something. But they're weak looking, you know? I gotta do something about it. Alright.